Could it be? For me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to this LouieTeeNetwork exclusive preseason recap or preseason week 1 recap. Celebrate. Football is back. We had 3 games each of the last 2 days, Thursday and Friday. So I'm going to recap 4 of the 6 games. I've already done one of them extensively on this channel, Patriots and Commanders. So I don't need to do that here. But I've watched a lot of football over the last 2 days, as you can imagine. I'm so excited to see football back on my television screen. I'm not going to hit the Lions and Falcons game because, as you know, if there are no starters, why bother, right? So didn't even hit that one. But I am pleased to report that one of the reason that that game ended early, if you guys weren't aware, that they ended that game prematurely due to an injury. One of the players suffered a head and neck injury, lied motionless on the field. Stretcher had to be brought out. He was carted off, taken to the hospital. I think we found out later on that evening that he did have full movement in all his extremities. He was talking, he was responsive, but he's going to stay in the hospital for more tests just to make sure everything's okay. So that was a great sign and great news. However, the other 4 games were quite entertaining, and I want to talk about them real quick. Can we give you just a few takeaways? I'm not going to sit here and get into in-depth breakdowns of these games, but I do want to talk about some players that stood out and some takeaways from some of these games. So we'll start with the Thursday action first. There were 3 games on Thursday. I had a chance to watch all 3 of those games for the most part. And we'll start with Ravens-Colts. Ravens get the win 24-16. As we know in the preseason, the wins and losses aren't really important. It's more about the performance and how you look and guys getting work. And so we'll start with the Ravens. Guys that stood out in the game, Keaton Mitchell, obviously no Lamar Jackson. Most of the skill position starters didn't play. The offensive line, they had some starters out there on the offensive line, however. So it was good to see the offensive line get some work because it made it easier for Keaton Mitchell, who was really the star of the game, along with LeJontay Wester, the rookie 6th-round pick out of Colorado, to have massive holes to run through. And Keaton Mitchell took full advantage. Remember, this guy came into the league 2 years ago and kind of took the league by storm in this little 6-week pocket. He couldn't be stopped, it felt like. And every time he looked up, he had this big explosive run. And then he tore his ACL. And it's like this fairy tale start to his career just was over. Just like that. And he said he felt like he was forgotten after that. No one was talking about him last year. Obviously, he was, mending the injury, and he was kind of just hovering around. And he's looking to get back in the mix this year. And I'd say Keaton was eaten on Thursday night and feels like he has definitely made himself relevant once again in that Ravens backfield. He was phenomenal in this game. And we'll see if he can find his way back into the mix along with Justice Hill and, of course, Derrick Henry in that Ravens backfield. Another guy that I thought was impressive in this game is Rasheen Ali, another running back who I just thought was really good. He had a big kickoff return in this game as well. The Ravens special teams was ridiculous in this game. We'll talk more about it here in a second when we get to LeJontay Wester, but Rasheen Ali looked good at the running back position. He had an excellent kickoff return as well. The Ravens are just such a well-coached team, and they really perform in the preseason, as we know. And it's because they're just talented 1 through 90 every year. They know what they're looking for. They put those guys on the field. They coach them up well, and they go out and they perform. And so no different here. And I think Rasheen Ali, if he doesn't make this Ravens roster, is a guy that I could easily see someone else being intrigued by and snatching him off the waiver wire should he not make the roster of the Baltimore Ravens. He looks like a really good young football player. LeJontay Wester was another one of the big storylines for the Ravens in this game. 6th-round pick out of Colorado, played on that team with Shadour Sanders and Travis Hunter and company. Boy, he looked good. My goodness. The first time he touched the football on a punt, he made 3 dudes miss and ended up, getting a gain of 24 on a punt that looked like it was going nowhere. And then the second time he touched the football on a punt return, he takes it 87 yards for a touchdown. I mean, this guy was incredible throughout the night. Then he also turned in the biggest catch of the night. I think he had like a 40-yard catch at the receiver position. I mean, it was the LeJontay Wester show. And if you're looking to make the football team like as a 6th-round pick, and not every team is going to make sure that all their draft picks make their roster. If you're in the position that the Ravens are, where you've got a pretty veteran-laden team, you've got, obviously rookies sprinkled amongst the group and young guys, 2nd and 3rd year guys sprinkled amongst the group, but you're ready to win a Super Bowl now. There's not usually a lot of space. When your program is already established, it's not a lot of space on the back end of your roster, for a 6th-round pick necessarily. But if you want to make an impact, if you want to make a claim to make the roster, this is how you do it. And so LeJontay Wester definitely opened some eyes. And if he wasn't on the radar of this coaching staff before, he definitely is on it now after what he did in his first preseason game. That's how you make a statement. That's how you tell a staff, hey, don't forget about me. Can't do it much better than LeJontay Wester did in this game. And then, this is what the sad part and the part you hate about preseason: injuries. Bilal Kone, a guy that I like coming out of Western Michigan, tore his ACL relatively early in this game. I want to say 2nd quarter, defending a pass right by the end zone, went down in a heap, and it was later confirmed that he tore his ACL. He's done for the season. So that's unfortunate, because I actually thought the kid, he has talent. I think he could play. I don't know if he's going to make the roster or not, but he was out there, relatively early. Obviously, the starters didn't play, so, guys are going to get out there relatively early, but that's a shame. You hate to see it. You go to the Colts side of things, a lot of the, talk was about the quarterback situation, and they've got a quarterback competition going on between Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. Richardson was supposed to play the first half of this game. Daniel Jones was supposed to play the second half of this game, and then they were going to flip the script next game. And so Anthony Richardson started off the game. He looked sharp. He was 2 of 3. And then it looked like he blew protection, right? I don't think he necessarily identified what the, front was, identified the mic, made sure everybody was accounted for. A free runner comes, and he gets demolished. I mean, Ajabo just crushes him. Unblocked, free hitter. He never sees him. Clearly, he did not identify where the pressure was coming from. He did not identify where the line needed to slide, and he got destroyed. And in that hit, and we've all seen the pictures of it by now, his pinky is pointing in the opposite direction on his throwing hand. And so he immediately gets off the field, right? He immediately gets up, runs off the field. Daniel Jones comes into the game. His night was done after about 4 plays. Didn't take long for his night to be over. Good thing is he's day-to-day, not a serious injury. Good for him, because he's had issues staying healthy, as we know. So glad that he's not seriously injured. But in year 3 of your career, you got to be able to set the protection. You can't be getting crushed like that in a preseason game. He's got to be better. He's got to be better. But he didn't. He looked good early before the injury. Somebody else that looked really good early is their 1st-round pick, Tyler Warren, out of Penn State. The tight end looked every bit worth the price of admission. My goodness, this guy came out and they made it they made a concerted effort. They made it their business to get him the football. Boy, he looks good. He's going to be a problem. We knew that when he was drafted, but they confirmed it, and they're going to go out of their way to get him the football, which they should. I wouldn't be shocked if he puts up Brock Bowers-esque numbers. Now, again, the numbers Brock Bowers put up last year were cartoonish. I don't think he's going to have the yards, per se, that Brock Bowers had, but I wouldn't be surprised if he touches it close to 100 times this year. They're going to throw him the football early. They're going to throw him the football often. He's going to be a part of their offensive game plan week in, week out. They made sure that they fed him the ball while he was in there early, and he had an impact before he exited the game. That is for certain. He looks good. Then you get to some other quarterbacks real quick. Daniel Jones came in for Anthony Richardson and looked like Daniel Jones. 10 of 21, like 90-something yards. He didn't look really sharp. He looked like Daniel Jones, right? I mean, if Anthony Richardson can't work out for the Colts this year, it's going to be a long season for the Indianapolis Colts. But there's another quarterback on that roster now. He kind of fits in with what you already have in Riley Leonard, who they drafted out of Notre Dame. But he looks like a better version of Daniel Jones. He was running around. He was poised back there. It wasn't always the most accurate, but he's a gamer. And so he's interesting. You don't want to see Riley Leonard this season, other than the preseason, if you're a Colts fan. But he's interesting. There could be something there with him. I think worst case scenario, he ends up being an NFL player of some sort. I mean, he's a quarterback, but he's one of those guys that strikes me that if he can't play quarterback, and he's going to play quarterback at the NFL level, but if he couldn't play, he would just switch to some other position, tight end or something, and just continue his career. He gives me those vibes. He's a football player. So I like Riley Leonard. I like his poise and his moxie. I like his toughness. And there's something there, right? So that was that game. Another game on Thursday. Eagles hosting the Bengals, Super Bowl defending champions, kick off their 2025 campaign, defending their crown in the preseason with a tilt against the Cincinnati Bengals. So 3 of the 4 AFC North teams were in action the first 2 days of preseason week number 1. The Bengals are trying a new way to go about the preseason. In previous years, Burrow and the starters barely played in the preseason, maybe a possession or two. And as we know, they always get off to a slow start. So this year, they're trying a different methodology. Burrow and the starters played multiple possessions in this game. They're going to play multiple possessions in the second preseason game to try and get them up to speed in a better rhythm to start the season. Zach Taylor, I think, is fighting for his life this year. I think that if they don't make the postseason, that would be 3 years in a row. I think he's fired. And I think he knows that he needs to change the way that they start seasons. That's why they've missed the postseason each of the last 2 years. Obviously, Burrow getting hurt 2 years ago is why they didn't make the playoffs that year, but they started slow anyway. They start slow every year, it seems like. So trying to change the fortunes of, the early portion of their season, they had the fellas out there, and those boys were cooking. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins were all on the field, but it really was Burrow and Chase with a little bit of Tanner Hudson sprinkled in, tight end, who continues to be impressive. Burrow was 9 of 10 for, I think, 90-some-odd yards and 2 touchdowns, one of them to Chase. You've seen the highlight already. He catches it's pretty much a comeback. Probably was a outcut. Curls back to the inside. Defender over pursues. Gets up the field. No one can catch him. Touchdown. Burrow was sharp. He was decisive. He looked like Joe Burrow. He picked up right where he left off last year when he put up MVP caliber numbers. The wins just weren't there. And the reason the wins weren't there is the same thing that you are concerned about if you're a Bengals fan this year is the defense. Because not only was Joe Burrow and the first team offense out on the field, the Bengals first team defense was out on the field too, for the most part. And they were up against the Eagles backups, and they couldn't stop a nosebleed again. So you're still concerned if you're a Bengals fan. Not every starter was out there, but the vast majority of them played in this game, and it still wasn't up to snuff. But Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow look to be in midseason form. That's good news if you're a Bengals fan. The bad news is the defense looks like they're in midseason form as well. And that's the problem because they can't stop anybody. Because they made Tanner McKee look like the second coming of Andrew Luck in this game. We'll get to that in a second. Tanner Hudson, I do want to highlight him. I thought he had an exceptional game. He and Jamar Chase really carried the load from a receiving standpoint. Hudson's always been a guy that I've liked, and he continues to be a really good young tight end on that roster. I think he's probably in year 3 or 4 now. I like Tanner Hudson a lot. He played well in the game a couple nights ago. And then Shamar Stewart, you remember the guy that had the insanely long holdout for a first-round pick, the guy that was threatening to not play football if he didn't, get the language out of the contract, that ultimately got, the team. I guess they sort of had a come to Jesus moment where the team didn't really cave. They kept the language in there, but he was able to get some more money up front. He played and he was solid. Had a tackle for loss in the game. And so it was good to see him get out there, get his feet wet, and see if he can be a contributor to this defense that desperately needs someone to step up, especially if Trey Hendrickson isn't going to be on the field, which I think eventually Trey Hendrickson gets on the field, even if he doesn't get the contract he desires. But this defense still has some issues. So good to see Shamar Stewart out there, and good to see him, in the backfield making a play. Eagles scored 34 points, win this game 34-27 over the Bengals with their backups in the game on both sides of the football. Tanner McKee, my goodness. Every time I see Tanner McKee, I am impressed. I think Tanner McKee is the reason that they felt comfortable trading Kenny Pickett. I think Tanner McKee is a guy that they feel very confident in for the first time in probably 6 or 7 years since they had Nick Foles. I think they are supremely confident in their backup quarterback position, because every time Jalen Hurts gets hurt and somebody else has to come in the game, the Eagles lose. Whether it was Kenny Pickett last year, or it was Gardner Minshew the year before that, or it was Marcus Mariota, they struggled mightily. But now with Tanner McKee, he was impressive last year when he came in that season finale against the Giants. He's impressive here. He was impressive last preseason. Every time I see Tanner McKee, I go, damn, he looks good. Like, he's the kind of guy that back in the day, the Patriots would have taken and flipped him for a second-round pick, because they knew Brady was going to be their guy, and they'd find somebody else. They'd find another guy. They get a Jimmy Garoppolo. They get a Ryan Mallett. They get a Matt Castle. They take Matt Castle, flip him for a pick. They get, Ryan Mallett, flip him for a pick. They get Jimmy Garoppolo, flip him for a pick, right? Jacoby Brissett, flip him for a pick. And this feels like a guy that they could easily do that with if they wanted to. I don't think they're looking to do that, though. 22 of 25 in a preseason game. I don't give a shit who you're playing against. It's hard to do. He was surgical. Will Shipley look good? I don't know where he is on the depth chart at the running back position. I would imagine that there's at least 2 or 3 running backs ahead of him. Obviously, Saquon Barkley. They added A.J. Dillon this offseason. So those 2 are clearly ahead of him. But Will Shipley continues to be impressive every time he gets an opportunity. Had the big run in the NFC Championship game. Was very impressive here. I wonder if they see him being able to finally step up into the role that now has been vacated by the former Memphis running back that went to the Steelers in free agency. Maybe Will Shipley can step into that role this year. Maybe he's ready, but he looked really good in this game. And then Johnny Wilson is another guy that I highlighted as a guy that made plays that I think is going to be on this roster. He was on the roster last year for the Eagles. Big target at the tight end position / receiver position. He's really a big receiver, but he, playing tight end, and Johnny Wilson, or he might be still playing receiver. He's big. I mean, that's the tall and skinny of it, right? Is that he's big, man. Tall as shit, easy to throw the football to. Doesn't always catch it, which was one of the knocks on him coming out of Florida State. But if he catches it, he's a problem, man. And so the Eagles just look good. They're just talented, just like the Ravens. Talk about this, how teams are so successful in the preseason. The preseason, especially when you don't play your starters, is more about the depth of your roster and the quality of it. Everyone has players from 53 to 90, and even those back end of the roster guys that aren't as impressive, but they're cogs on special teams, et cetera, those last 50 guys, 40 to 90, that's where you find out just how talented you are. The first 25 to 30 guys on your roster are key contributors. They're playing on, offense. They're playing on defense. They're rotational guys that come in on those sides of the football. It's the next, 23 guys or so that are core special teamers that really don't contribute on offense or defense. How talented are those guys if they have to go in the game? And that's where you find out where teams are really talented. And the Eagles are one of the most talented teams. Last year was one of the most talented rosters, top to bottom, we've ever seen in the NFL. That didn't change overnight. Now, they're not as talented as they were last year, but they're still really, really good. And this was more proof of that. They're a really good team, top to bottom. You go to the Raiders-Seahawks game. This ended in a tie, the rare preseason tie, 23-23. Geno Smith going back to the scene of the crime of Seattle. Same can be said for Pete Carroll. So that was one of the storylines of this preseason game. But my favorite thing of the preseason thus far, and I don't know if anything will top it, is Geno Smith flipping the bird to a Seahawks fan that had a sign that says, "Bigger Raiders bust, Geno Smith or Jamarcus Russell." And Geno just couldn't help himself. This guy wrote, and Geno wrote back this time. Geno went over, flipped him the double bird, and there's a great picture of it. I've got one of the pictures down in the thumbnail of this video, but there's an even better picture with both of his birds being flipped. I just got one of them, which is all you need. And you see in the one that I got, Max Crosby cheesing, but also going to run and grab him to pull him away from the guy. It's awesome. It's Geno Smith, raw and unfiltered, which is the way we love Geno Smith. So speaking of Geno, he came out. I thought he looked sharp, except for the wide receiver screens. The Raiders, for some reason, just couldn't catch them. Geno didn't throw them the best in this game, but they didn't catch them either. They were catchable footballs. So his, one drive that he was out there ended because they couldn't catch the football. But he did take them down the field and get them into a position where they should have been able to get points. Ashton Jeanty got nothing in this game. And it wasn't his fault. There was nowhere for him to go. I think he had 3 rushes and he might have had -3 yards. Like, literally, they didn't block for him at all. Credit the Seattle Seahawks front, but that was their starting offensive line, by the way. This was not their backups. This was their starting offensive line. They got manhandled at the point of attack, and there was nowhere for Ashton Jeanty to go. So he had a pretty forgettable debut, but he'll be fine. Dante Thornton Jr., the 4th-round pick out of Tennessee, a guy that a lot of people who follow the draft closely were very intrigued by. This is a guy 6'5", 205, runs the blazing 4.3 40, averaged about 80 yards a catch in college last year for the Tennessee Vols. They drafted him in the 4th round, and he's fast. Newsflash, if you didn't know. He scares defensive backs. He made 1 catch in this game on a comeback where he threatened a defensive back. He opened up. He came back, got the football. I could see him being a real difference maker in this offense. Once he gets settled in, kind of understands his role, uses his speed to his advantage, he's going to be a problem. I truly believe that. One thing I want to mention, a guy that really played well in this game was the veteran safety, Jamal Adams. And I looked up at this roster because I was seeing names, and I was like, am I tripping? That's not who I think it is. And I said, damn, Pete Carroll bringing back all the oldie but goodies. When coaches, show up to somewhere, they like to bring familiar faces with them, guys that know their system or know the culture that they're going to try to, install. And they like bringing, friendly faces with them. And I'm like, Pete, though, Jalen Smith? Jamal Adams played his ass off in this game. Maybe there's something left with Jamal, right? Jamal played last year, so, no big deal. Philip Dorsett? It's like, is it 2015 or some shit? Whoa, what are we doing right now? And I don't think Jalen Smith has been in the league that long. I could be tripping, and maybe he has been in the league that long, but I just felt like Jalen Smith's career was done. I didn't even know he was still playing football, to be honest with you. I'm not even going to hold you. But to see Jalen Smith, Philip Dorsett, who's got to be 32, 33 years old, which I'm like, Philip Dorsett? What? And then Jamal Adams, it was crazy. Like, Pete's bringing back all the oldie but goodies, man. Seahawks, on the other hand, they did not play their starters in this game, but we got to see a lot of the youngins. George Holani was one of the stars of the show, running the football. They just destroyed the Raiders up front, and I love the fact that they use a fullback, Robbie Oots, who we saw in the combine with the porn stash, was putting dudes on their ass, right? And we saw that at Alabama. We saw him at the combine moving the sled, and he looks the part, man. He's a problem at the fullback position. Even caught the ball for about a 17-yard gain or so in this game, did Robbie Oots. So George Holani was getting busy in the game. I mean, they couldn't stop George Holani early when he was out there. Torrey Horton, a guy that I didn't really necessarily love out of Colorado State. Torrey Horton looked good. He looked good in this game. Caught a touchdown pass early on from Drew Lock. So Torrey Horton looked pretty good. And then Jalen Milroe was actually interested to see what he looked like. I thought he looked pretty solid. Yeah, you know, they didn't ask him to do too much. 6 of 10, I believe he was in this game. Like 60 yards or so. Ran it a little bit, which we know he can do. And he looked good in that aspect as well. I thought he looked solid. It was a really solid debut for Jalen Milroe. He didn't vomit all over himself. So, and I guess I'm setting the bar way too low for him. But I actually thought he looked solid. I was somewhat impressed. Because I'm not a Jalen Milroe guy, as you can tell. So I'll be keeping tabs on him, though. Browns and Panthers. This was Friday. So all of that was from Thursday. This is the only game we'll talk about today from the Friday action. Obviously, I've already talked Commanders and Patriots a ton on this channel, so I don't need to continue to rehash that ass whooping. 48-18, Patriots get the win. However, and I already told you, I'm not talking Falcons, Lions. They didn't play any starters. No starters. Why bother? That's my motto. So Browns, Panthers. This was a highlight game. This was one that was featured on the NFL Network. A lot of fanfare. I'll tell you a quick story. My mother-in-law, she dibbles and dabbles in sports. I love my mother-in-law. And she called us and she was like, I want to watch Shedeur. How do I watch him? And I'm like, it's on NFL Network. And she was like, I don't know if I have that channel. So she checked to see if she had it. She didn't have it. So she's like, how do I get it? So I think she might have gotten NFL Network last night just to watch Shadour Sanders. That's how much he moves the needle in a preseason game, right? Like the NFL knows what they're doing. They know how to take a product and shove it down your throat, and they're going to take Shadour Sanders and milk it for all it's worth. And I'm not sure he's not the Browns' best quarterback. I'm just going to be honest with you. He's better than Kenny Pickett. We all knew during the draft he was better than Dylan Gabriel. I still don't know why the hell the Browns did that. All right. You just basically drafted a slightly stronger arm Tua Tagovailoa. He's better than Dylan Gabriel. And he's better than Joe Flacco at this point in Flacco's career, even though I love Joe Flacco, and you know that. Joe Flacco. I'm not sure he's not already the best quarterback on their roster. Now, again, he was playing against the Panthers. You know, it was a smorgasbord of guys that will see the field and not see. Like, there was no, starting corners out there for the Panthers. Neither one of their guys, Michael Jackson nor J.C. Horn, were out there, right? Like, most of the starters for the defense weren't out there, but the starters on the offense were. That doesn't matter. And that's not Shedeur's problem. His job is to go out there and play ball against whomever's out there. And I thought Shedeur looked really good, man. Hit us with the roly Sully a couple times. But the thing I was probably most impressed with, I knew he could manipulate the pocket on one of his touchdown throws. I mean, you talk about, sidestepping the rush, stepping back up, resetting your feet and delivering a dot. I mean, that shit was a thing of beauty. We knew he could do that. He did that at Colorado. Like that, his pocket work is impeccable. Like we don't worry about that. My thing was, could he move, right? Could he be a playmaker outside the pocket? Well, the first touchdown pass was him outside the pocket, delivering the football to a moving target to his left. Super impressive. And if you look at the window from his vantage point where he threw that football, two defenders there converging, he gets that football through there. It's impressive, right? I was impressed with his legs. He had a nice scramble early in the game. He got out of danger a couple of times, extended plays with his legs to throw, to run. I thought that was the thing that I went, oh, I said the same thing about Bo Nix. If you remember last year when we watched him in the preseason, I said, the thing I was most blown away with Bo Nix, and I said, this is why he's got a chance. I forgot he was an athlete, because he was an athlete at Auburn, because he had to be, because he wasn't a great passer then. He got to Oregon, and they got him the football out of his hands so quick. We didn't see Bo Nix run, so you forgot Bo Nix was an athlete. Well, Shadour Sanders isn't the athlete that Bo Nix is. Let's not confuse the two, but Shadour Sanders doesn't have two left feet, right? So, first of all, I don't even like that connotation. I don't even know why I just said that. That's so disrespectful to left-handed people, even though we're talking about feet. You're assuming that having a left foot means you can't dance, you can't run, you can't do anything mobily. Okay, let's not do that. You know, he doesn't have cement in his shoes. All right, that's what we're gonna say. All right, it's bullshit. You wouldn't like it if I said he doesn't have two right feet. Whatever. He was really mobile last night. That was impressive. He looked good. I thought he put the ball in catchable spots. The only thing I didn't like was on a fourth down, they went for it, and he had a flashback to when he was at Colorado, and he thought he was playing against North Dakota State, and that he's going to run backwards 60 yards and then throw it up for grabs, and somebody's going to bail him out and catch it. This is not college. You're not back in the Big 12. You're not back in the Big 10. Don't do that, right? But outside of that, I thought Shedeur looked good, and he's making the conversation interesting. And Dion tweeted out before the game, he's like, I ain't been saying nothing, but I'm just telling y'all, everything's about to change after the night. And sure enough, after this game, Dion tweeted, what y'all got to say now, basically. What y'all gonna do now? Because Shedeur done thrown a monkey wrench in it. If nothing else, you can't sit back and tell Cleveland Browns fans, hey, this brother can't play. We need to put in Kenny Pickett, or we need to put in Dylan Gabriel. It's hard to look them in the face and say, hey, 40-year-old Joe Flacco, who we've seen on 2 different occasions, is the best option for this team right now. It's hard to look Browns fans in the eye and tell them that Shadour Sanders isn't the best option after that performance. Now, he's got to do it again. Just one game. But damn it, it was impressive. Carson Schwessinger was out there running around. He led the team in tackles, which is what you want to see from your second-round pick out of UCLA. So that's a good sign for the Browns. I think this defense has a chance to be really good. Mason Graham didn't do much in this game, but he did get his feet wet. And obviously, when you get the starters out on the field like Myles Garrett and company, it's going to change the way he sees, double teams and things of that nature. He won't be seeing those anymore. Maybe he'll be able to get active and start to make his presence felt. So Browns win the game 30-10. And so much of the fanfare and the hoopla around this game was all about Shadour Sanders, and rightfully so, right? It's Shadour Sanders. But the Panthers did feature go upstairs and do it. Bryce Young, who is a really good player himself and had a resurrection of sorts last year. And he started in this game. And no one was talking about Bryce Young. And quietly, Bryce Young went out, threw a dot to Tech. I mean, this thing was gorgeous. Over the outside shoulder, right? 35 yards or so down the field. Tech with a beautiful adjustment and catch. He reminded everyone of why he was a first-round pick and one of the best receivers in this draft class. Catches the football, threw another one to Tech, and quietly letting them down the field. Had a scramble out to his right after a failed first possession. The second one was a thing of beauty. Dot, gets into the red zone on a third down, scrambles, finds Coker in the back of the end zone, touchdown. His night was done. He was impressive. That gets lost, though, in all of this because it was the Shadour Sanders show, right? But quiet is kept. Bryce Young went out and had himself a really good performance. That second drive was exactly what Panthers fans want to see from him and his new number one wide receiver in Shadour McMillan. There was an ejection in this game. All right. Xavier Legette got ejected. I think on either the first possession or the second possession of the game. Him and a veteran safety. I forget the safety who got ejected, but both of them were tossed like immediately in this game, it felt like. So Legette, I think, is more of a 2 when it's all said and done. So now you have a legitimate 1 in Tet. I think Legette is going to be a really good number 2. You still have Adam Thielen as a really good number 3 veteran option. I think they've got enough weapons around Bryce Young for this thing to work. Chuba Hubbard looks good. Had a nice run early on that possession that I just mentioned. And or I think his run came on the first possession. But I think there's enough talent. If they can protect, that's going to be the question. Can they protect Bryce Young adequately? But he looked good. And no one talked about it because of Shadour Sanders. But Bryce Young played well. Tet, I just mentioned Shadour McMillan. Boy, he looked good. Shadour McMillan looked good in this game. Had 2 catches, 1 on a deep ball, had to be every bit of 30, 35 yards over the shoulder. And it was good coverage, but it was just Tet was just being Tet. Also caught a comeback later on that drive. He looks the part. He looks like a young kid, similar to the ones we saw last year. He looks like he can come in and have a Brian Thomas type of rookie season, right? Where 70-something, 80 catches, 1,200 yards, rookie season, no problem. Cool? Cool. He just looks like he's ready, right? And then Nick Scorton, a lot of people forget that the Panthers drafted Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M, a guy that I thought was going to come in and be a really productive NFL edge rusher. Looks the part. Got a sack in this game, had 2 quarterback pressures, had a tackle for loss. He looks the part to me, right? So come in, dominate in your first preseason game. Like, this Panthers defense needs a guy. They don't have a guy as an edge rusher right now. They're starving for someone to dive into that mix and give them something. They got guys on the interior, right? They don't have anybody on the edge that threatens you, that scares you. Enter in Nick Scorton. First game as a pro in the preseason. Has a really good performance. If you're a Panthers fan, you should be encouraged by Nick Scorton, who played really, really well. So that's it for me. Preseason is off and running. As I watch them, I'll report them. Football is back. Celebrate. I'm excited. I know you are as well. This is what we live for. This is why we do this. I'm so excited to see football back. And gosh, it feels good. Feels good. Anyway, I enjoy watching other teams. That's part of me being a junkie. Football has been injected in my veins ever since I was a kid. I got the itis, the football. Well, I shouldn't say itis because I don't get tired of football. I got the football Jones, right? I got to have it. Always need it. So football's back. So I'm going to be watching. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. Your man, Louie T, here on this installment of Preseason Recaps. Week 1 of the NFL preseason off and running. I think we're going to see a lot of starters. Like, I just gave you 4 games. The Commanders-Patriots game has featured starters on the Patriots side. So that's 5 out of the 6 games that featured starters, right? There's been 6 games so far. 5 of them featured a team putting their starters on the field. The Chiefs have already said Mahomes is playing. There are other teams that are going to play their starters. I know Aaron Rodgers isn't playing. I know Caleb Williams isn't playing. There's other teams, but the other team that they're playing may be playing their starters. Justin Fields is playing with the Jets. They're putting their starters out there. So I think you're going to see a lot of games with teams putting their starters out on the field. Especially being that there's a full week between the last preseason game and the start of the season. There's a full week of no action, no activity. Teams feel comfortable putting their starters out there, getting them some work, getting them those reps. You're not tackling in the preseason or the practices anymore. You need reps for your guys. So I'm looking forward to watching a lot of these teams put their starters out on the field and get them the work that they need. So I think this is going to be a fun preseason. You're still going to have the teams like the Rams that punt on the preseason, you know, and don't put their starters out. The Cowboys aren't going to put their starters out there probably at all this year like they always do. And so, you know, there's still teams that adhere to that. But I think you're getting more teams that are saying, no, we need to put our guys out there. That makes for a good product for fiends like myself who can't get enough of this stuff. So in any event, also I love watching the youngins, man. You like seeing the young guys come out like Tet did last night, like Nick Scorton did. You like seeing the youngins get out there, get their feet wet and ball, right? So LaJohntay Wester for the Ravens. You like seeing the young boys that you were watching film on during the draft process, even if they ended up being a 6th or a 7th round pick. You still watched them and you know about them, and it's good to see them go out and take care of business. So anyway, I digress. You guys take care. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. A lot of football today. A lot of football. 6 games today. Plenty for you to consume. No, I think it's 8 games today. 2 on Sunday. So enjoy. 8-game slate. Knock yourself out. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.